On November 17, 2020, a memoir by Barack Obama called A Promised Land was published.
Former President Barack Obama publishes his presidential memoir. The 768-page book, A Promised Land, hits shelves today, and Obama writes about the trials and tribulations of serving as commander-in-chief and the division he says his election caused in the country.
In an interview with Oprah, Obama makes a startling admission concerning the psychological makeup of any person, himself included, who desires to become president, when he declares, running for president requires a certain element of megalomania and insanity.
To actually imagine yourself running for president requires a certain element of megalomania and insanity.
Megalomania is a symptom of mental illness marked by delusions of grandeur and obsession with one's own power. A megalomaniac is convinced of their absolute power and greatness, and this delusion is coupled with a desire to control the world. Obama's seemingly innocuous admission has actually just put the world on notice of the megalomania and insanity that he will eventually display in a vigorous and aggressive manner as the future Antichrist and ruler of the New World Order or One World Government. You will remember recently we have spoken about the recurrent use of the number 17 in satanic occult rituals and how the number 17 ultimately points to the 7 heads and 10 horns found in Revelation chapter 17 verse 3, which describes the woman who sits upon a scarlet-colored beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. We'll come back to the Scarlet Woman in a moment, but first, let's look at Obama's memoir, A Promised Land, and its connection to the number 17. The first reference to the number 17 is obvious since the book was released on the 17th of November. But it doesn't stop there. You may recall that November was originally the 9th month, and the word novum actually means 9. Therefore, novum 17 could be written as 917, and 9 plus 1 plus 7 equals 17. It should also be noted that 2 months ago, on the 17th of September, which is also 917, an announcement that Obama's memoir would be released on November 17th was made.
President Barack Obama's memoir titled A Promised Land will be released on November 17th.
According to reports, the book sold nearly 890,000 copies on its first day. 8 plus 9 equals, you guessed it, 17. The book was published by Crown Publishing Group. Crown Publishing is a reference to the coronation or crowning of Obama as king, the rider on the white horse found in Revelation 6:2, which declares, "And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and the crown was given unto him, and he went forth, conquering, and to conquer." The crown is also a reference to the coronavirus, which represents the venomous lies of the serpent and king of the bottomless pit that have been used to propagate this pandemic in order to subjugate the entire world under Satan's authoritarian rule. Remember, we discussed how the bow carried by the rider on the white horse in Revelation 6:2 actually means a piece of cloth and is a reference to the masks the entire world has been forced to wear to muzzle or silence you. David Drake, the executive vice president and deputy publisher of the Crown Group, had this to say about the release of A Promised Land. we are thrilled with the first day sales. The name David means beloved, idolized, exalted, and worshipped. The name Drake comes from the word Drakon, meaning dragon or serpent. Therefore, the Crown Group, which published Obama's memoirs, A Promised Land, and David Drake, represent those who idolize, worship, and exalt their beloved dragon, that old serpent, the devil, and Satan. Obama's interview by Oprah was broadcast on Apple TV+. Throughout history, the apple has been used as a representation of the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge that the serpent tempted Adam and Eve with in the garden, causing them to think differently. Genesis chapter 3 verse 7 declares, "And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons." Adam and Eve covered their nakedness because their thinking had changed. Their perception of themselves and the world around them had been permanently altered. It's as if they were placed under an enchantment or magic spell and made blind to the truth. This connects back to Nas's album, King's Disease, and its reference to Barack Obama as the Serpent King of the Garden of Eden. The encounter of Adam and Eve with the serpent in the Garden of Eden is the moment that death entered the world through sin, and this is the reason why Apple TV Plus has the half-eaten apple representing the forbidden fruit, then the TV, which is used to tell lies through visions or images, and is followed by the plus sign, which is also an X and represents death. The name Oprah is Harpo spelled backwards. Harpo is a reference to Harpocrates, the god of silence or secrets, which connects directly to secret societies like Freemasonry. Ephesians chapter 5 verses 11 through 12 declares, "And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. For it is a shame even to speak of those things which are done of them in secret. But all things that are reproved are made manifest by the light. For whatsoever doth make manifest is light." Harpocrates was the Greek interpretation of the Egyptian god Harpocrute, who was the child of Isis, Horus, the sun god, both of whom were incorporated into Catholic worship as the venerated Queen of Heaven and baby Jesus. The photo of Obama as a child being held in his mother's arms was meant to mimic Isis and Horus, the Queen of Heaven and baby Jesus. The Queen of Heaven brings us back to the number 17, the Scarlet Woman, mother of harlots, who saith in her heart, "I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow." That being said, let's analyze the semiotics found in a few recent satanic blood sacrifices that have occurred thus far during the month of November to prove that all of these events are orchestrated and staged for the extremely wicked and demonic purpose of bringing forth the Antichrist. The first blood sacrifice ritual event occurred on November 4th, 2020. A 17-year-old girl was killed at a travel lodge in Pompano Beach, Florida.
Bullets riddled the front of this hotel room of the Travel Lodge in Pompano Beach after a shooting left 17-year-old Alyssa Espaillat shot dead Wednesday morning. The Coconut Creek High School student's parents devastated after learning their twin daughter was gunned down by two suspects they said she didn't even know.
right away you should recognize that she's 17 years old and the date, November 4th, 2020. Remember, novum equals 9. Therefore, 9 plus 4 plus 2 plus 2 equals 17. The victim was 17-year-old Alyssa Cabrera Espaillat. Her and her twin sister, Eliza, had just celebrated their 17th birthdays on October 30th, and 5 days later, Alyssa was dead. The number 5 is also significant here, but we'll get to that in a moment. The date, October 30th, or 1030, gives us the number 13, which represents rebellion. Notice that Alyssa has bright red hair. The color red, or scarlet, and the number 17 connects her with the mother of harlots found in Revelation chapter 17, Mystery, Babylon. Remember, Shakira showed the world a depiction of the Scarlet Woman and mother of harlots during this year's Super Bowl halftime show. Now pay attention to the shirt Alyssa is wearing in this photo. The shirt has a picture of the Notorious Big as a baby wearing a crown. The baby on her shirt is a reference to Babylon. Also, the fact that she is wearing the Notorious Big shirt, which depicts him as a child wearing a crown, also connects to the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or the notorious RBG, who we discussed in a previous video and discovered that she was also meant to symbolize the Scarlet Woman, Babylon the Great, who rides the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, another reference to the number 17. According to the arrest report, 19-year-old D'Angelo Cincord fired several bullets through the closed curtain window of room 123, striking Alyssa. This is a reference to Revelation 12:3, which declares, "And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads," a reference to the beast that the whore of Babylon rides. The family had been living in the Travel Lodge for about a week. The Travel Lodge is a reference to a Freemasonic lodge, since the question, "Are you a traveling man?" is asked to identify one Mason to another. The answer given to this question is yes, I'm traveling from the west to east. A Master Mason is a traveler from west to east, as east is where the sun rises, hence the source of light. Thus, being a traveling man represents the journey from darkness to Masonic light, or enlightenment. We know that the light which they seek is that of Lucifer, the light bearer. This connects to Obama, since his symbol is the rising sun. In the ancient world of operative masonry, the masons were often required to move from job to job, much as in our modern time. The traveling man is also meant to represent the Fool tarot card. The Fool is titled Le Mat in the Tarot of Marsiglia and Il Matto in most Italian language tarot decks. These archaic words mean the madman or the beggar, and may be related to the word for checkmate in relation to the original use of the tarot cards for gaming purposes. In the earliest tarot decks, the Fool is usually depicted as a beggar or a vagabond. In the Visconti Sforza tarot deck, the fool wears ragged clothes and stockings without shoes and carries a stick on his back. He has what appears to be feathers in his hair. His unruly beard and feathers may relate to the tradition of the wood wolves or wild man. Now, let me show you the significance of the wandering madman and how it further connects to this story. The name Alyssa is derived from the name of the flower Alyssum, which means without rabies. It is derived from the Greek meaning not mania, or to be without madness, insanity, obsession, raving, or psychosis. Herbalists used the Alyssum flower as a cure for madness. The name Alyssa is a variant of the name Elijah, meaning wanderer. It should be noted that the prophet Elijah was aloof and lived in the wilderness, wandering throughout the northern kingdom of Israel, wearing the garment of a prophet, and he often challenged idolatry and government corruption. The name Alyssa in this event at the Travel Lodge then connects back to the Fool Tarot card and the Wandering Madman as a reference to the return of the prophet Elijah during these last days.
Honestly, in 2 years, I didn't know no one was inside the house.
Sir, do not talk about the facts of the case.
19-year-old D'Angelo Sincord faced a Broward County judge Thursday denying he knew anyone was inside the Pompano Beach hotel room when Broward County Sheriff deputies said he and 23-year-old Jayla Patton were involved in a shooting that took the life of Alyssa.
When we break down the meaning of the name of the 19-year-old shooter, D'Angelo Sincord, this is what we find. D'Angelo means of the angel. Sincord contains the root word cinco, which is 5 in Spanish. Therefore, he represents the fifth angel. The truth of what D'Angelo Sincord, the fifth angel, represents is revealed when we reverse his age, which was 19, to 9-1. This is a reference to Revelation 9:1, which declares, "And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit." In the window of the Travel Lodge, where the shots were fired, the marks measuring the size of the bullet holes were labeled ORC Forensics, with the company logo, which is a pyramid with the all-seeing eye. The second satanic blood sacrifice ritual we will look at occurred on November 6, 2020 in Atlanta, the murder of King Von.
Well, it happened early this morning on Trinity Avenue, and tonight at least 3 people are dead.
Yeah, Rick and Sean, according to GBI, rapper King Von and his group were at Opium nightclub before making their way here to Monaco Hookah Lounge, then to the parking lot where chaos ensued.
The name Von means from, so King Von means the king from. The date of King Von's death was November 6th, or 11/6, which when inverted and reversed is 9/11, a reference to Revelation 9:11, the king from the bottomless pit. The shooting occurred outside the Monaco Hookah Lounge on Trinity Avenue. Trinity is a reference to the satanic trinity, the dragon, the Antichrist, and the false prophet. The name Monaco is an epithet for Hercules, the son of Zeus, who was said to be half god and half human, since his mother was mortal, connecting him with the Nephilim giants, who had fallen angels for fathers, and human mothers. This can be found in Genesis 6:4, which declares, "There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown." You will notice King Von has the numbers 6'4" tattooed on his shoulders. This represents his neighborhood, but also connects him to Genesis 6:4. And he was killed in Atlanta, which is a reference to the kingdom of Atlantis, the world before the flood, where the Nephilim giants ruled. His real name is Devon, which means powerful warrior in Indian Sanskrit. Interestingly enough, he was killed at a hookah lounge, and smoking hookahs originated in India. The name hookah is of Hindu origin, and it means cavity or a hollow through which smoke is drawn. This is also a reference to the bottomless pit, since we are told this in Revelation chapter 9 verse 2, after the fifth angel opens the pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. Interestingly enough, this is the cover of King Von's album, which is called LeVon James, and was released on March 6th, or 3/6, which gives us the number 666. You will notice that he is mimicking LeBron James's pre-game ritual, with the smoke rising up from his hands. LeBron James, or King James, even made a comment on Twitter concerning King Von's death. Notice November 6th is 11/6, which when inverted and reversed is 9/11, a reference to the release of the king from the bottomless pit. Since King James plays for the Los Angeles Lakers, this connects King Von's album to the lost or fallen angels from the lake of fire. In the picture of King Von, the chalk or smoke makes the letter O. Also, the number 64 is a reference to the 6400 block of South Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, also known as O Block in Chicago. Gang members gave O Block the name. The O was for 20-year-old Odie Perry, a gang member gunned down on a summer's night in 2011. Allegedly, a 17-year-old female gang assassin named Jerika Barnes was his killer. Interestingly enough, it was reported that 17-year-old Barnes bragged about killing 17 people before she was gunned down. There's that connection to the number 17 again. What I just told you is one explanation for why it is called O Block. However, I submit to you a spiritual representation from which the name O Block derives. We know that Obama is from Chicago, and the letter O is used to represent Obama as well. Most importantly, and what you might not know, is that Barack Obama's wife, Michelle Obama, lived on O Block as a child. Now, some may look at the murder of King Von as being the result of his gang affiliation in street politics. However, the real truth is hidden deep behind the reality of the life we experience in the temporal, natural, and physical world. Outside of our reality, exists a supernatural reality that cannot be seen with your physical eyes, nor perceived with temporal understanding. It requires a spiritual discernment to see and understand, and this is what Yahushua meant in John chapter 9, verse 39, when he declared, "And Yahushua said, For judgment I am come into this world, that they which see not might see, and that they which see might be made blind." Notice, King Von wearing the number 64 is 6 times 4 equals 24, or 2 4s, a reference to Barack Obama, number 44. The name Martin Luther King Jr. is sometimes abbreviated as MLK, which is actually a reference to the horned god, the bull god, Molech, to which children were sacrificed through the fire to. See Leviticus 18:21. The name Lavan means lion. The name James comes from Jacob and is a reference to Israel. Jacob means one who takes the hill and supplanter. We know that the lion of the tribe of Judah is Yahushua, and the one who takes his hill is the serpent or Satan. This is found in the book of Genesis, when the Most High curses the serpent in the Garden of Eden after he tricked Adam and Eve into eating the forbidden fruit. Genesis chapter 3 verse 15 declares, "And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel." Satan is depicted as a lion in 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 8. And the word supplanter means someone who wrongfully takes the place of another. This is a reference to the Antichrist, which means in place of Christ. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 tells us that the man of sin, the son of perdition, tries to supplant God in verse 4, which declares, "Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he, as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God." Therefore, it is clear that the semiotics found in the images of King Von's album, LeVon James, is meant to represent number 44, Barack Obama, as the Antichrist. The third satanic blood sacrifice ritual we will look at is the murder of rapper Mo3.
A Dallas rapper was murdered outside of his car on I-35 near the Dallas Zoo.
Police say the victim, a hip-hop musician named Mo3, was approached by the killer on I-35. Both men stopped their vehicles. The victim got out, took off, started running, but was shot several times on the highway.
So Dallas police hope you might be able to recognize the man who shot and killed rapper Mo3. I want you to come over to your screen and look at this. They released these photos. The images are pretty clear, but as you see, the suspect is wearing a ski mask.
Mo3 was shot and killed on November 11th on Interstate 35 in Dallas. As we said previously, November was originally the 9th month, and Novum means 9. Therefore, November 11th is 9/11 as well. Interestingly enough, Mo3 also has an alter ego by the name Osama. In a song called Mo3 versus Osama, his alter ego is equated with the devil.
Tell him I never won't let up, I just caught a battle. Yeah, I know I'm the devil.
Remember, Mo3, whose alter ego is called Osama, was killed November 11th, which is 9/11, since novum means 9, and this fact connects him to Osama bin Laden, who was blamed for the attacks on the World Trade Center and Pentagon on 9/11. It is important to note that Obama announced that he ordered an operation which killed Osama bin Laden on May Day, forever connecting himself with Osama.
Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda.
It is also important to mention that on 9/11/2011, Obama stood at Ground Zero, where the Twin Towers once stood, and the One World Freedom Tower was eventually built, and read Psalm 46, declaring himself to be God.
Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth.
Again, 9/11 is a reference to Revelation 9/11, the release of the king of the bottomless pit, Abaddon or Apollyon, the destroyer. Mo 3 was shot on the freeway called I-35. The letter I is the 9th letter. 9 plus 3 plus 5 equals 17. Once again, another connection to the number 17. The letter I in I-35 also represents the all-seeing eye, and 35 equals 3 5s. Interestingly enough, another rapper who was shot and killed, XXXTentacion, released an album called 17, and he also had a song called 555. In Roman numerals, the number 5 is a V, so 555 is represented as 3 V's. This connects to the Volkswagen symbol. Remember the Super Bowl commercial where the Volkswagen engineers got their wings?
What if I told you that every time a Volkswagen hits 100,000 miles, a German engineer gets his wings?
The number 555 is a reference to the Antichrist becoming fully indwelt by Satan or receiving his wings. It should be noted that in December 2019, Mo 3 was shot in the head and survived.
Hey! Man, come on. How ass niggas just pulled through here? I'm good. Niggas just shot me in my hand, grazed my back. Man, I'm good.
This is a representation of the deadly head wound that the Antichrist receives and survives. The fact that this happened on the freeway on 9/11 is a reference to the king of the bottomless pit being set free. This also connects back to the dreadhead cowboy riding the horse on the freeway in Chicago, and O.J. Simpson riding on the 5 freeway in the white Bronco as well.
Morning. This is AC. I have OJ in the car. Okay, where are you? Please, I'm coming up the 5 freeway.
We know that the 5th angel is given the key to open the bottomless pit and release the king of the bottomless pit. This is the reason the shooting occurred near the zoo.
A Dallas rapper was murdered outside of his car on I-35 near the Dallas Zoo,
which is where dangerous and wild animals are kept in cages. They are telling you that the ultimate wild animal is about to be released from its cage. Mo 3's connection to Osama bin Laden, 9/11, and Barack Obama brings us back full circle to the release of Obama's memoir, A Promised Land. Obama's book is a reference to the promise of the land of Israel, which Yahweh made to Abraham. Genesis 12, verses 1 through 3 declare, Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. In Genesis chapter 17, verse 5, Yahweh changed Abram's name to Abraham. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee. Remember when Obama gave his speech in Philadelphia, the sign with Abraham Lincoln was behind him. Not only was this a reference to the deadly head wound Lincoln received and a foreshadowing of the Antichrist's head wound, this was also a reference to the promised land that was given to Abraham and his descendants forever as an everlasting covenant, which can be found in Genesis chapter 17, verses 7 through 8, which declares, I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you and your descendants after you, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. And to you and your descendants I will give the land where you are residing, all the land of Canaan, as an eternal possession, and I will be their God. During the time of Jacob's trouble, the Antichrist will set his sights upon the promised land of Israel, which was given to Abraham and his descendants forever. He will confirm a covenant which he will then break 3.5 years into that covenant. Daniel 9:27 declares, And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Daniel chapter 11 verses 23 and 24 and 41 tell us, after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully, and he shall enter also into the glorious land. Verse 45 goes on to say this, And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain, yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. On November 15th, Obama also appeared in a 60 Minutes interview to promote his book, A Promised Land. The 60 Minutes is a reference to the hour of temptation that will come upon the earth, the tribulation period, the time of Jacob's trouble. Remember, November 15th can be written as 9:15, a reference to Revelation 9:15, which declares, And the 4 angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, for to slay the 3rd part of men. This is the symbolic reason for his 60-minute interview on this date, as it represents the final hour and the time that these angels are loosed. During this interview, they mentioned that it was held at a location which served as a hospital for wounded soldiers, and that the 16th president, Abraham Lincoln, visited wounded troops there during the Civil War, which divided the land.
We met the former president at a symbol of America's past divisions. The Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery was a hospital in the Civil War. Clara Barton and Walt Whitman cared for patients in the building where the 16th president consoled his wounded.
The mention of Obama's book, A Promised Land, in conjunction with the Civil War, which divided America, is a reference to how the Antichrist will divide the promised land of Israel. See Daniel chapter 11, verses 38 through 39. In closing, we are constantly being shown symbolic representations of spiritual truths through orchestrated satanic blood sacrifice ritual events being carried out in this physical plane of existence. True reality is rooted in the supernatural, but unfortunately, most remain blind to this truth because the profane and carnal existence that their entire being is inherently fixed and inseparable from. The natural world is that shroud which conceals and disguises the metaphysical, ethereal, and immaterial world that surrounds us. But all praise and honor and glory and power and might be to the Most High, for He has gifted us with the ability to see where they are blind, and we will not lose our vision. If you have not given your life to the Most High by accepting the blood sacrifice of the Paschal Lamb, Yahushua HaMashiach, which was shed on the cross for the redemption of sins, the time to do so is now. You've seen how Obama has returned to the world stage, and henceforth he will only continue to increase in stature and position until he reaches his ultimate goal, that the true megalomaniac which resides within him desires.
To actually imagine yourself running for president requires a certain element of megalomania and insanity.
World domination, and to be worshipped as God.
Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth.
The Antichrist, the leader of the one world government. This is the promised land that he aspires to. Amen. Shalom.